Hi and welcome back to another Tech Minds video. So here we have what looks like a 40 channel CB handheld transceiver for 27 MHz. Well, you'd be right, but this little beauty can be modified for export mode, but more on that in a moment. Now as we take a look around what's in the box, I do notice a photo of an optional car kit. Now this gives the option to connect the radio to the vehicle's power and also provides an SO239 connection for an external antenna. Pretty neat. Now the JoPix CB-514 supports AM and FM on whatever frequency you're on, and also has an output power of 4 watts for the high setting and 1 watt for the low setting, according to the specifications. Now we'll check this on a power meter shortly. In the box we find the radio itself, along with a rubber duck style antenna with a BNC connection. It's highly doubtful this antenna will support the full frequency range when in export mode, so just bear that in mind if using outside of the pre-programmed channels. Also included is a belt clip and a USB power supply. USB, I hear you say? Yep, this radio is charged via USB and it has a USB-C socket on the side of the radio. Now on the front of the radio, we find a backlit LCD along with backlit function buttons. Now these are used to change channel, change modulation, enable or disable squelch or auto squelch, and activate features like scan mode and Vox. The left side of the radio features 4 buttons. The top button is the main PTT, and below this we have the high and low power button, which changes the power output of the radio. Below this are a further 2 function buttons, which for me only the bottom function button worked, which when pressed opened the squelch when tapped and then closed the squelch when tapped again. Now usually when finding function buttons like this they're programmable, but I'm yet to come across any programming software for this radio. On the right side of the radio we find a speaker mic socket hidden under this little rubber flap, and then below this we have another rubber flap which exposes a USB-C socket. Now, as mentioned before, this can be charged via USB, and this is the USB-C port that you use. On the bottom of the radio is something we don't often see, and that's a connection and a screw mount, which is used to connect the optional car kit. That was mentioned earlier, the car kit allows the radio to be powered from your vehicle's cigarette lighter socket, and also included off that lead is a little fly cable with an SO239 attached. Now on top of the radio we find one rotary control, which turns the radio on and off and also adjusts the volume for the internal speaker. Now next to this we find a BNC socket, which is where the included antenna connects to. It's just a simple push and twist fit. Now I've put this antenna on a network analyzer and it appears the antenna is most resonant around 26 MHz, so perfect for the EU band and others around that frequency. The internal battery is rechargeable and it's removable, however the back panel is held on by one simple screw. Now this does make it super easy if you ever need to replace this battery at some time in the future. Now when turning on the 514, we're presented with a large numeric number on the LCD, and this represents the channel number currently selected. What's also nice to see is that the current frequency is shown towards the bottom of the screen, just above the signal meter. The up and down buttons are used to change the channel, which goes from 1 to 40. Now the function buttons provide access to a rather small selection of features, and this is mainly used to on and off the beeps and alerts, and also set things like the Vox level when it's used. The AM and FM button changes the radio's modulation type, but if you hold in the same button, the radio will change band, which you then change using the up and down arrow keys. So for example, you could have UK 40 and then the European frequencies. Other features like squelch adjustment and auto squelch can be adjusted directly on the front panel using the appropriate buttons. Now if you power on the radio while holding down the band button, you're given the option to change a timeout timer, just to stop all you old folks from waffling on and thinking this is a top band radio. So here's a neat little trick with this radio. Power it on while holding the PTT and the top left button and you'll be presented with this, which you can choose a different table number. Now default appears to be table 1, but table 3 appears to me to cover from 25 MHz up to 30 MHz in 10 kHz steps. If you choose table 2, then you'll notice the steps are still 10 kHz, but it ends in a 5. So what does this mean? Well, it means you can now use this radio on the 10-meter handband with either FM or AM. Now, it's a shame it doesn't support SSB. I know everyone's going to be saying that, but we can't have it all. After all, this radio costs around $100 at the time of making this video, which, to be honest, is actually kind of cheap. Of course, I would most definitely recommend to use a dedicated 10-meter antenna if you're going to transmit on 29 MHz, as the supplied antenna is not really designed to go that high.
This is M0DQW, Mike 0 Delta Quebec Whiskey, testing the JoPix CB-514. M0DQW testing.
Τι να κάνω, μόνο το γείτονα εδώ πέρα ακούω καλά. Φέρνω παραπάνω και γι' αυτό βάζω για να μ' ακούτε.
Να σε παρέμνε. Sierra Victor 4 Juliet Yankee Delta. Συχνότητα 29250. Υπότονος 71,9 Hz. Διαμόρφωση FM. Πήλιο παγασιτικός κόλπος.
Try again later. QRZ Hotel Zulu and Lima Golf. Colin secure significant. Secure significant. Hotel Zulu and Lima Golf. Hotel Zulu and Lima Golf. Colin significant. Understand and bye. Radio Alpha Juliet X-ray. Again, Alpha something. Radio Whiskey 3 Alpha Juliet X-ray. Romeo Washington 3 America X-ray.
So as well as listening to some DX coming in this morning, I was also able to have a conversation with a local amateur. Luckily, he has a 10-meter radio and we could work each other on FM. We also go on to try AM later in this QSO. Watch out for when I press the NRC button, because that activates the noise reduction, and it works really well.
GAAQP is M0DQW. Do you copy me, Stuart?
M0DQW G8AQP. Yes, I copy you okay, Mark. You know, it may be why your volume is low to me, while your speech is low to me. It's probably mine, because I have never set this receiver up on for FM. I haven't had an FM transmission on it before, so I'm keeping the power down so I don't cook my finals. M0DQW G8AQP. Indeed, with the cousin of my wife. Just met her down there. It was, and the weather was absolutely fabulous. M0DQW G8AQP. I don't, well, you must know about the FTDX10. You can set the audio parameters on various modes, and I've never set it up on FM. I've just left it as it comes from the factory, so to speak. M0DQW, M0DQW, G8AQP, M0DQW. How's this on AM if you're copying? This is G8AQP. Definitely different. Shall we put it this way? There's a difference in the audio, definitely, and I'm the same, you know, but it's the first time I've used this rig. As I say, it's the first time I've used this rig on AM itself, so it's interesting to watch what happens to the various needles in it from G8AQP.
Now, I don't know about you, but I thought the audio sounded fantastic on AM, especially with the noise reduction enabled too. It didn't sound too bad on FM either. Now, one last test, and that's a power test. The radio is still in export mode, and we're transmitting with the battery fully charged at the start of the QSO. Now, on 25 MHz, we see an output power of around 3.3 watts, and then up on 30 MHz, we see an output of around 3 watts. Now, when I drop the frequency to around 26 MHz, we see nearly 5 watts, and it's coming in at around 4.7 watts. So not bad from such a small little radio. Now, if you're in the UK and you fancy one of these radios, then I'll leave a link to the Moonraker website where you can go and grab one of these at a bargain price. Anyway guys, thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, stay safe, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.